Welcome everybody to Sharing Soulful Stories. And today I am here with Julie Parker. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much, Jo. It's so lovely to be here.
So let me introduce Julie to you. Julie is hailed by ELLE Magazine as a self-help guru. She is the founder of the Beautiful You Coaching Academy, where she passionately trains and supports heart-centered people to become life coaches. The editor-in-chief of Inspired Coach magazine, a published author, podcast host, and in-demand speaker, Julie has inspired thousands of people on stages all over the world and is the recipient of numerous leadership and women's business awards. Julie is also a modern-day priestess with a focus on her Celtic, Balkan, Iberian and Greek lineages. She is committed to contributing to a world where qualities of intuition, presence, nurturing, spiritual exploration, social justice and service are honoured. Julie is currently undertaking intensive training to become a priestess of the Magdalene. Julie lives in Melbourne with her husband, stepdaughter, and two much loved adopted cats. Oh, so exciting, Julie. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jo. Thank you.
So as part of that beautiful introduction, you actually touched on being a fan of promoting spiritual exploration. So that's really what I've put this summit together for. And I would really love to open with the question, what does spirituality mean to you?
It's such a big question, isn't it?
It really is.
It strikes me that on any particular day, Jo, if you were to ask me this question, I could give you a different answer. And some people might find that a little bit flaky, which I really get. But at the same time, I think it's part of the flow of life in relation to the fact that one's spirituality and exploration of that can mean different things to them at different times. And I know that that has certainly been the case for me. Oh, excuse me. There you go. The goddess is speaking to me in some way. Yeah. I really think that spirituality for me is an exploration of my own divinity. It is whatever I need to explore or love or cherish or work with or dance with or dive into at any given time that is going to help me to see that I am so much more than this body, so much more than this voice, so much more than the physical presence that I carry as a human being walking the planet. And that I'm a starseed and that I'm made up of the red thread and ancestral lineage of hundreds and thousands of women and men before me and so much more. And so at any given time, that spirituality may involve me working with the goddess or exploring parts of my shadow and personality that are not serving me and that I need to look at deeper. It may be about spiritual lessons that I need to undergo in relationships in my life at the moment. It could be any of those things at any given time. And I just know for myself that exploring my spirituality and working with it and uncovering it and loving it and being challenged by it is a life path for me. And that the more that I invest in doing that, the more whole as a human being I feel.
Wow, that is such a fabulous and complete, expansive description of what spirituality can be. And I really love the idea of actually, I don't find it flaky at all. I feel that opening it up to the potential that there can be a different approach on a different day and how you feel at any one time is dependent on how you feel in that moment is actually really wonderful. you touched on so many interesting points there. So what I would really love it if you would do would be, can you share your story? Because there's obviously lots of threads that came through in that description. And I would love to hear how your spiritual unfolding up to now has looked.
Oh my goodness. Let me try and give you, as a woman in her midlife, the abridged version of this as much as I can, Jo. I was raised in a Christian household, in an extended family. When my parents got divorced, my mother moved home to live with her parents, who were my grandparents, and her brother, my uncle. I grew up on a farm on the outskirts of a very small country community, and very much raised in what would be called a God-fearing family, and with a Christian orientation. Now, it's certainly not in the way that I know for some people it's very, very strong, but still we went to church, we went to Sunday school, and we're very connected in with that faith and that small community in that way. For me, however, from a very early age, these stories and the spiritual connection that I had with our church, though, was always at its peak in relation to the women of Christianity and the Bible. So whenever Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary or any of the women in the Bible were spoken about, that's when I felt my heart sort of leap quite a bit. And it was like, that's when I leaned in. And slowly, as I got older, as happens to many people as a teen and things like that, you lose interest in going to church and becoming part of those things. And I became more interested in my friends and school and things that we were doing outside of school. And then I went away to university. And I think what happened to me is that when I left the farm to go away to study, I really lost a part of myself and the connection to the land that I had grown up on. And I didn't really realise how important that connection to that land was to me until I no longer really had it. And I found myself feeling very disconnected from Mother Nature. And so in the last 10 years in particular of my life, I've really explored that relationship a great deal more. And really that opened up my spirituality in a second wave of journey to me, when I began to really, really feel into and understand the power of earth and woman, and the power of femininity and the womanly creation of life. Away from the much more patriarchal Christian model where there was one monotheistic God that had been taught to me. And this world opened up to me the world of the goddess, the world of the wheel of the year and cycles and seasons, and very much the world of the priestess. And it was really then that I began to see, right back as a little farm girl, running around in Mother Nature and immersed in that life, but also my fascination with the women of Christianity and their roles and leadership, and also suppressed roles within that, how powerful women are and have been in spiritual circles, and how much of that has been suppressed. And it's really that has ignited me so significantly, and my path as a priestess in the past few years, Jo, and where so much of my passion for being a spiritual woman, and also hopefully holding beautiful space for other women to explore their spirituality, has come forth in where I am right now.
Oh, amazing. I love it. I just love hearing how different people's journeys have unfolded, because they're all so incredibly different, and in particular which pieces people choose to highlight as part of that, incredibly abridged version of their life. And I wondered, is there any particular highs or lows, or, you know, moments where you really deeply feel that you're guided, or that connection to spirit sort of speaking to you in whatever way that is meaningful for you?
You know, I think there have been so many, but I'm going to go with the one that first came to me, and that is the very first time that I ever heard the word priestess. Which is many, many years ago now, and I had a physical embodied reaction when I heard that word, which interestingly enough was occurring within a very, very similar, if not same context that you and I are engaging in right now. But I was actually the interviewer. And a woman who was a priestess, but I did not know that that's what she considered herself to be. When I asked her what was some of the most significant learning that she had undertaken in her life, that she felt had created the successful and extraordinary woman that she was today, that's what she said. I know it sounds like a strange thing to say, but it probably won't to you. I found myself almost transported into another dimension. And I had this physical embodied reaction to that word, and a voice, obviously my own voice, but a part of my voice that I had never ever heard before, it came forth from inside me and said, this is your path. That's what I remember it telling me, this is your path. And I had never heard the word before, and I didn't even really know what it meant. And it was not appropriate for me at that time to ask her indulgingly for myself more questions about what she meant by that.
Yeah.
And so I did what all good modern people and researchers do. I got on the Goog afterwards, straight to the Google, and started researching this word. And all of these things came up that just opened up, you know, some would say a rabbit hole, but I'm going to say it was a portal for me that literally changed the course of my life. And the more that I read about ancient priestesses and the re-emergence of this archetype for female spiritual leaders in the modern context, the more I realised that not only was I one, but that I'd come from a lineage of ones. And that when I thought about my mother and my grandmother, and even my grandmother's mother, and the roles that they had played in life as leaders in their community, especially in relation to the work that they had done with other women, you know, a long line, very strong matriarchs and women in our family, I realised that this was in fact an ancestral thing for me. It was a lineage that I'd come from. Not that my nana would ever have called herself a priestess or thought she was such, but she was a medicine woman.
Yeah.
No question about that in relation to the church. My mother, you know, as a significant spiritual leader in her own community, in her own way, all unpaid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deep work, not to mention their deep connection to the land, and the greatest goddess of all, Mother Earth. So that's probably the most significant thing that's happened. There's been others, but that's probably the pivotal one.
That sounds truly pivotal, and I can understand how that when you actually when I came to one of your Goddess Roadshow events last year, and you shared a definition of what a priestess was, I was like, oh, I really connected with that word too. So that's really resonant, as resonant for me. But to help people really understand what this looks like, I would love to know sort of how do you weave it into your life sort of now, today, business and life? What sort of practices are part of your rhythm that
Yeah, look, I think I should be upfront and honest with you and say that unlike some people out there who I deeply admire but have come to understand at 46 years of age is not me, I'm not someone that is particularly regular. in regards to the devoted practice that they may have, or things that they may do, or a routine that they may have. Like, some people ask me sometimes, what's in an interview, what's your self-care routine, or what's your spiritual routine? What do you practice that you engage in every day? And I do engage in my own spiritual connection every day, but it often looks very different every day. And that's what works for me. I know that for other people, a regular commitment to certain things, such as a meditation practice and many other things, works for them. I find it constricting. There is something for me that is very boxed about that I've learned just doesn't work. And I know this about myself, Jo, in all other areas of my life. Like, I've joined a number of gyms in my lifetime. It doesn't work for me, because there is then this expectation that you will go a set number of times per week and all that sort of stuff. And I have come to learn that if I am truly connected to my goddess voice and embodiment as a priestess, that a much better thing, a much richer and deeper thing for me to do is to ask myself every single day, what do I need? How would you have me serve today? What is my calling in this present moment to do in the immediate future? I may ask myself any number of those questions, and that then influences how my day unfolds. In relation to how this shows up for me in my work and business and the world, I really feel as though there are two ways that happens. One of them is not necessarily something that you see. And I know that you will understand this, and lots of other women or people that are on a spiritual path will understand this as well. But that what my role as a priestess has allowed me to do is to show up in the world in a certain way, with sovereignty and strength, and understanding of who I am, with humility and respect for my shortcomings and my failings and the things that I need to continue to work on, but also the areas where I can lovingly shine and own that. And that is, I hope, something that this spiritual path allows me to be able to show up as a full, whole woman and spiritual leader every day in whatever way I'm meant to. Then there's the more practical elements of it that show up in different ways, such as the fact that I don't believe that I empower anybody. I believe that as a priestess, I'm somebody that hopefully creates conditions and miracle spaces and containers where people can choose to empower themselves. That I believe in sovereignty for all people, and that I'm always looking for, no matter whether I'm training a coach or maybe leading a sacred circle or experience of some kind, that I'm always asking questions and always seeking for ways to someone to come up with their own answers, and somebody to find their own level of sovereignty and their own level of confidence, rather than having me prop them up, while still being loving and encouraging and supporting as they do so. That's just probably two examples. There are many more, but I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. It shows up in an energetic way that other people might not necessarily realize because it's so personal to me, but then it shows up in practical ways as well.
Oh no, I feel all of what you're saying. And actually, I really love and want to honour you for your honesty about the fact that your daily rhythm, routine in regard to this isn't always the same, because I do feel like that might put people off before they've even begun playing or exploring with spirituality. Oh, then I've got to meditate this many minutes, this many times a day, or what have you. Or I can only be spiritual if I do this, that, and the other. And the fact that it can look different every day is something, like you say, that open up the cage, allow ourselves out of any anything that feels restrictive, you know, let's expand it. What feels good? What feels good? So I loved that. I totally resonate with the energetic feeling, you know, how can I show up in my most, you know, in the best that I can be in any moment. So that's really wonderful. Given all of your different experiences and the journey and the story that you shared for us, is there something in particular that you would recommend, or some advice that you would give to someone just tempted to dip their toe in the water with, you know, exploring what spirituality might mean for them?
My goodness, this is an enormous question. And I think a lot of it depends, Jo, in many ways on maybe where someone is starting from.
Yeah.
Whether they're possibly just awakening to the fact that they're a spiritual being, because we all are, or whether they are much, much further along in their journey. But what's coming through for me, I'm feeling a bit of the dark goddess, actually. She's poking me in the back. Is she's just telling me to make sure that I share that it's not all rose oil and flower crowns. And to maybe understand, without wanting to put anybody off, that really, as I mentioned at the start, that when we open ourselves up to exploring our spirituality, there's no such thing as black and white or right or wrong. It's a very personal journey and experience. But that there will reach a time when, if you do open yourself up to exploring here, you will have many beautiful thoughts and experiences and explorations, whether that be through meditation or walking the earth or reading a divine book or immersing yourself in a creative project or going to a women's sacred circle. It could be anything. But that eventually, if you keep walking along this path, what will happen is that, in inverted commas, if you're really going to go there, if you're really going to do this properly, some stuff is going to come up. Because what happens when we're walking a path to wholeness as a human being, we are all filled with light and dark. We cannot be shining and on and feeling fabulous and confident and divine and beautiful all the time. We all have moments in life where we are triggered, where we feel comparison, jealousy, anger, bitterness, wrath, anger, none of which are wrong. All of which are simply a par for course in the human experience, but that so often we want to bury and push down and deny are even there. And this stems right back to when we're little children, where we're said, don't cry, don't cry, don't be angry, don't be upset. And we're taught to suppress these emotions. But when you really begin to explore your spirituality and your divinity, that shadow stuff will come up. And I just want to encourage anyone that's maybe right there right now, or you do begin this path, to not worry about that when it happens, and actually to understand everything is okay. In fact, you're really in it. Like, as soon as that begins to happen, what is occurring is that you have reached a point of strength where you can take it, you can handle it. And all those things about yourself, such as for me, when a lot of this stuff came up, things around bossiness, vanity, control, fear, wonky relationships with other women, repeating patterns of behaviour of jealousy and control and other things, you will be in a position where you can handle it. And you can do it, and you can start to unpack these things, recognizing and realizing you're so okay. You're so still lovable. you are so still all right and so still whole, but that until you look at these things and really work out how to love your shadow and see the beauty in it and what it's trying to tell you, you'll always remain slightly off kilter and never ever fully in your lived experience as a human being, because there will be a part of you that remains in denial. So it'll happen. If you start down this path, it will happen. Don't freak out. It actually means that you get into the good stuff.
I love that. I love that you chose and listened to the guidance to share that, because it's so true. And my personal experience with that, because I'm so resonant with what you're saying, and I know so many people that have joined this path will be aware of it, is just I learn or acknowledge or become aware of it much more quickly, you know, and you find the ways that for you work to release it. And indeed, sometimes just clicking into the awareness place of it, of what you're doing or what you've dropped into or what this might be saying to you, you know, this aha happens and this like flood of different energy comes through, and you're like, oh, so now I kind of love when those new ones, oh, I didn't know you were still there. Okay, thank you for coming up again. So I love that you mentioned that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I just want to also just say, so for anyone that wants to know more about your work or learn more from you, can you tell us how can they find you?
Sure. Well, I think probably in relation to this work, the best place to find me is just at my personal website, which is juliesuzanneparker.com. And as you know, Jo, we've known one another for a little while now. I've got my fingers in a lot of different pies and a lot of different energies and paths. And I could send people in other directions, but really probably that's the best place to start. And I think if someone is interested in exploring or connecting with me further, they can then choose whether it might be the podcast and the beautiful people that I interview on that is most of interest to them, or whether it be training to become a coach or just simply reading about some of my spiritual journey. So I think that's probably the best place to go.
That is perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey. I have loved hearing about it, and I could ask you so much more, but I'm conscious of keeping these interviews digestible. So again, thank you so much, and I will put all the links below the video when I share it, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me, Jo. It's been beautiful to talk to you.
Thanks, Julie.